Yeah, I just saw the video of these three Arizona girls. I guess most of you have already seen it. I'm kind of late with this video. It's pretty ridiculous. None of what they said made a lot of sense. It's not really worth considering that video. I mean, if it was my daughter, which I don't have a daughter, I have a son that's 21. If one of those was my daughter and I saw that video, I'd want to kill myself almost. That was pretty bad. I'm sure, can't imagine what their parents are like. Anyway, it just kind of made me think about a lot of things I wanted to get off my chest. So I just thought I'd make this video and talk about a few things. This whole problem, it's really the person who's really responsible for all this going on in Arizona and now Alabama is Jan Brewer, the governor of Arizona. She's the one that started all of this. She just, for whatever reason, thought it would be a good idea to violate people's rights in the name of solving the immigration problem. Which, immigration is the problem, not illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants are not the problem. They're crossing the border to work. And I don't care what anybody says, and all these people voicing all these numbers about what it's costing this country. Those numbers don't make a lot of sense, because it's just like if I'm owning a business and I'm going to show you how much money I'm making or losing, am I just going to show you all the expenses? There's no way to measure how much profits are made by the use of illegal immigrants, because most of them work harder, longer hours, and they complain less, don't ask for benefits. Everywhere you go, you see them working. I live in an area where there's a lot of them, and they just work real hard. So I don't really think they are the problem. The immigration is the problem. We don't want anarchy on the border, but it's not their fault. And if we could come up with a plan where the corporations could legally use these immigrants in the factories, we could actually bring manufacturing back to the United States, because that's a resource of cheap labor. That pool of labor can compete with foreign companies that are hiring people for cheap. But that's all I wanted to say on that. They don't qualify for welfare. That's a big rumor that's been tossed around, that they qualify for welfare. If you have an anchor child, that child is entitled to a prorated amount of welfare and food stamps. Now, the children of illegal immigrants, they do have a right to an education, but they do not qualify for welfare. And I've never really heard of too many of them. Well, I've never heard of an illegal immigrant that's not an anchor child on welfare. I've just never heard of it. Just doesn't make any sense to me. I keep hearing about this, but nobody can point me to a site that can prove to me that that's true. So I don't believe it's costing us as much as they say it is. I don't think it's necessarily costing us anything at all. To be honest, I think we'd have to import all our food if we didn't have immigrants working in the field. I come from a ranching family, and just growing up, I can tell you right now, things wouldn't have gotten done without immigrants. And here in the city I live in, when I need stuff done on my house, every time I hire someone that speaks English well, they do. They come to my house. They usually look like band members from the Guns N' Roses rock band. And I don't know, I guess a lot of them are drug addicts and stuff. And they always do terrible work. When I call someone and they don't speak much English or don't speak any English at all, it's always done faster and better. That's just my experience. I'm not picking on white people either. Because I can tell you right now that when I've hired in the past Mexican Americans, I have the same problem. They don't do good work. But when they're Spanish speaking people that don't speak English well at all or don't speak it at all, they always do good work. That has never failed me. So I just wanted to get that out there. I did, when I was in grad school, I did some research, and I think there's something going on here that's harming not so much the immigrants themselves, the children of immigrants, and generational people that have like grandparents that are from Mexico or Dominican Republic or wherever. There's something that's harming us, and it's assimilation, actually. That's not necessarily been a good experience. And I can direct you to research that shows that immigrants that come to this country and don't assimilate well as far as the language end up being more successful than the groups that come here and learn the language quick and kind of fit in, very easily. They're not as successful as the ones that don't actually assimilate well as far as language goes and things like that. So there's this big thing, learn English, learn English, learn English. That's not the problem. And I know some people associate being dumb with not knowing English, but I can tell you it's no different from somebody who doesn't know Spanish. I mean, if you only know English and don't know Spanish, you're not any smarter than someone who knows Spanish and doesn't know a lot of English. But anyway, the thing is, immigrants come here. They're usually successful. And depending on which country they come from, sometimes their children who try to assimilate are not successful. And what the research shows is when they come here, well, not them, their kids, they look at American pop culture, they look at mass media, they look at all the advertising, they look at the news, they look at videos like this, and then they wonder, well, where do I fit into all this? Where do I fit into this melting pot? Since I'm no longer from the Dominican Republic or from Mexico or wherever, so that's my parents' world or my grandparents' world. I'm not part of that. What world am I part of? And they look at all this advertising and mass media and American pop culture, what's going on with it. Okay, I fit into this poorer, maybe gangster, maybe ghetto, maybe I'm lesser than the dominant culture category. And you start processing that, and that's where you fit in because you don't remember the old world you came from. And when you get sucked into that world where you're part of a world where a different group of people are more dominant, economically, then that has a negative effect on you. And that's where you fit in. So the moral of the story is just be proud of who you are and never mind all this. I don't have nothing against MTV or everything you see on TV or everything you see on the news. It's just that it's not you. It's just, it's okay to watch it, but just be proud of who you are. Don't be afraid to be a Mexican. Don't feel like you're less of a person because you'd rather speak Spanish or do things that Mexican people like to do that white people maybe necessarily don't like to do. Don't worry about all that. Be proud of where you came from. And if you don't have no memory of that, or like my family's been here hundreds of years in Texas, so I don't know any of that past. And now I find myself in my older age trying to learn about it because I feel like that was a mistake I made. I grew up in the South, which was pretty much segregated in the 70s. And during that time, speaking Spanish was a no-no. Even eating fajitas was a no-no. I mean, they just, I used to have, there used to be homes where I would go into, and the first thing that they would tell me, don't mention your name, because I'm a Garcia, around my parents, because you won't be able to come here anymore. You had to act white. You had to do what white people did, and you already knew that they considered Mexican people to be less, and blacks to be less of people, and it was considered normal. Well, now I'm older and I'm been to college and I've learned about all these social problems people have, and I know the mistakes I made, and I think emotionally I would have been better off just rejecting all those concepts. And most of you people on YouTube are young, so I'm just telling you, don't get so caught up in trying to be trying to be what is defined as being a U.S. citizen. You can be who you are and be a U.S. citizen. You don't have to be like this dominant group. You don't have to be that. We've been taught that we should all be one, but I think, well, like one immigrant from Libya one time told me, the problem with Americans is they don't have any traditions. That's why the United States has all these social problems. And it's because we all came from somewhere else, our ancestry, and we're confused about what our culture really is supposed to be. Even white people in this country have that problem. The only group of white people that have been successful at establishing their own true identifying culture is Southern whites. They have been successful at establishing a culture. Other groups of whites haven't really. They just kind of left their European background behind and just, okay, I'm an American. But what is an American? No customs, no culture. That's basically all I wanted to say. I just wanted to get that out. And I'll put some links to some of the research I looked up. And, well, es todo lo que quiero decir. Tienen buena noche. Bye. Sorry about my Spanish.